Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome, everybody, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I'm so glad that you stopped by. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. You know, I know there's lots of podcasts out there, and the fact that you were drawn here, I don't think is a mistake, for one thing. It's a little bit different message than you might hear out there in the weight loss conversation. And I also feel like those who are drawn to Heal Your Hunger and the message I have, I feel like we are special people. So what I mean by that is we have a hunger, pardon the pun, but we do have a hunger for a deeper message, for real, for authentic, and for really exploring why we've had the crazy behaviors we've had around food, and not just explore it by saying, what's the next new fad diet? But instead, how can I really relate with food differently? How can I understand my habits and what truly drives them? And how can I show up in the world in a more authentic way where I'm not afraid to be seen? I'm not afraid to be seen. I'm not afraid to use my voice. I'm not afraid to have the feelings that I have. And I'm not afraid to stop apologizing. So if that sounds a little juicy for you, if that's something that you feel like is in your heart, you're definitely in the right place, because that's the conversation we have. It's a deeper conversation. Food was what got my attention. Food is what, kicked my ass, truthfully, to the point where I was willing to have that conversation. And the lack of success around dieting and weight loss is what drove me to have the deeper conversation. So welcome. If you're here for the first time, welcome back. If you're like, yeah, give me more. All right, let's rock and roll. We do a lot in the Secret Sauce group on Facebook. So definitely join us at the Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating Facebook group, private Facebook group. I'm also on Instagram at Tricia Nelson _, with some really fun videos, some really inspirational messages. So follow me on Instagram, and let's dive deeper. And this interview with a good friend of mine, Ajaya Sommers, is it will not disappoint. It is nothing short of a deeper conversation. So the beautiful and wonderful Ajaya Sommers is the founder of a unique somatic discovery process called Core Embodiment, which is an integrated system of embodiment practices, principles, and perceptual orientations to awaken and align with the power of your human potential. She's got all kinds of certifications, but the bottom line is she's a gifted teacher, author, public speaker, and really creative analyst in the field of psychospiritual somatic integration. And she's been doing this for close to 3 decades. And she's just such a lovely person. And that's, those are the people I like to have on my show, is people who are really coming from their heart. They're not necessarily all in their heads. They're smart, but they're not living in their heads. They're integrated with their heart and their bodies. So, and we're going to talk literally about that process of integration in this interview. So I hope you enjoy this show. Welcome, Ajaya. How are you?
I am doing great, and I'm super honored to be here with you today.
I'm so glad to see you. You're such a beautiful soul. And I'm excited for this conversation, because I know there's a lot of alignment in our work and our quest to take people on a deeper journey so they can heal, period. End of story.
Right.
like it doesn't have to be a constant, never ending struggle. That when we go inside and we do that deeper work, it has reverberating effects in every area of our life. And so, of course, this is an important conversation for emotional eaters, because it's not about the food. So we want to go deeper, and we want to heal and see what makes us tick, so that we're not driven to eat time and time again or do anything self-destructive.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start with your story. How did your life evolve to the point that you do this very important work?
Well, gosh, that's a big question. I think that I always had a curiosity and really more of like an obsession, I would say, with just the whole mechanism of who are we? Why are we here? What, like you said, makes us tick? How do we connect with that deep place inside that we're really living our most authentic life, our most fulfilling life? And obviously, I think those questions led me to my own deep healing journey and also led me to bodies of work that I've studied over many decades that I think in the process certainly gave me, gifts and skills and capacities and insights into working with other people. But it was also about my own deep journey of integrating my own, early traumas. And I think just the inevitability of being human on the planet at this time.
Got it.
We're all in the process of healing and integrating.
Totally. So what I love about your work is you use some really important words, and one of my favorites is embodiment. And so I would love for you to talk about what core embodiment is and how that's, how that's so central, how that became so central to your working with people.
Thank you. I would love to talk about that. Well, I think kind of where we are at this time in the evolution of, let's just say, in the more of the subculture, I would say the people who are interested in waking up and discovering, who am I and what is really my life, right? Individuating from our culture and our family of origin and all of that business. I think the word embodiment has become really pivotal because we're sort of at the, I would say, like at the auspices of generations of, work in the mindfulness movement, meditation, things like when I was growing up, I was all about like, okay, I want to wake up. I want to wake up to who I am, And at a certain point, those more, I would say, more kind of masculine traditions from India, at a certain point, I got really interested in more feminine approaches that had to do with feeling and had to do with inhabiting my tissues and my bones and my body and, really getting in here. And so I got involved with a body of work called Continuum, which is a somatic movement practice. And eventually there was just a way I started to discover that we, now there's all this great neuroscience on what's, how our nervous system and our brain, but I started to discover that so much of where we're really seated and what really runs us is in our gut brain, as you know, and also our heart brain. And so I started to put together all these different maps from both more modern day sort of neuroscience approaches to more ancient approaches. And they all sort of correlated in interesting ways. And I think now there's a lot more research that's actually recognizing that the brain we have in our heart and in our gut is actually has a stronger influence. It's more of like a bottom-up model than a top-down model. And then just in my own experience, I got to a point where I realized that I needed to do the deeper work of really establishing that bond with my own body and with nature, with the planet. And it wasn't so much through my head and this wonderful, brilliant brain that I have and we all have. It was really more through my heart and through my gut brain and even deeper, the root. And I think our genitals and our sexual organs also are a brain that we'll come to discover is partly also what's guiding us.
I love that. Wow. I love that so much because, regarding those who are listening, typically emotional eaters, we have spent so much of our lives shutting off all those beautiful sources of information. Like we have mostly been in our heads as a protective mechanism, right? Like, so especially if we've been sexually abused or have been abused in some way, it's like we have decided to live from the neck up, and then we've, of course, destroyed everything from the neck down with our eating habits and having unhealthy food choices and all that. So much of what we do at Heal Your Hunger is try to get out of our heads, not completely, obviously we have brains for a reason, but at least making that journey, like you're talking about, from your head to your heart, to your body, to awareness of your body, more relationship with your body. So it sounds like that's exactly what you're talking about. And I love that you brought in the other things, our gut, our, genitalia, like everything that we've sort of decided is off limits, or sort of decided is just like, it's not safe to go there. And of course, that's part of our problem. We're not going there. And so we're just remaining numb. And the only way to stay completely numb is with carbs and sugar, like completely pretend it doesn't exist. And I've done that. So I love this. And I think that's probably why I love the word embodiment so much, because it is so, so important. And I love core embodiment, that term. I think that's so beautiful. So can you talk in your own way, what that means to you in terms of addictive behaviors?
Yeah. I mean, I think in a simple way, like there's a lot we could say about addictive behaviors, but I think the way that where I've kind of landed is that we are beings, we are feeling beings. We are designed to be oriented to pleasure, to joy, to positive sensation. That is the environment, that is nature, and that is our birthright. And I think early on when we have traumatic experiences, and like you said, we cut off and we start living more out of our heads, we start to lose touch with our true nature. And so part of healing on any level, I think, is reconnecting and discovering how to create that inner environment again, where we feel safe to feel and to actually experience true pleasure. And so there's this term called pseudo-eros. And I think all addictions really are stemmed from an attempt, this kind of pseudo-eros, an attempt to fulfill a deep need, right? And so even if there's that temporary moment of putting, like you said, some really sugary, sweet thing in your mouth that gives you this temporary pleasure and fulfills a temporary need to feel alive and feel like, oh, I'm in control. I got what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
So it's this pseudo-eros, right? We're not really connecting with the true eros that will fulfill us. And I think that's where healing addiction at its root actually lies. So sometimes, really disciplined approaches and just going cold turkey and telling yourself you can't have that thing. For most people, that doesn't really work, right? Because you're not getting to the bottom of the need, right? Or of the real desire. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Thanks it's nice hearing, similar concepts in different words and with different bodies of work behind it. So
right.
Thanks for sharing that. That's beautiful. There's another term that you use, which I would love to hear. Also, you talk about, you're very eloquent, by the way. So it's fun just hearing you talk. But can you talk about transformational intimacy and what that means to you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, over time, just working with people, what I've noticed again and again, like I feel like transformational intimacy is basically like this mystery school that I'm constantly being schooled in as I work with people. And essentially what I've noticed is that where we self-heal, where we come home to ourselves, where we start to, tease out, this is me, not me. Oh, I inherited this behavior or this perception or this way of being from my mom or my dad or my grandparents or the culture or whatever. That process of individuating and actually reclaiming, wow, this is how I feel. This is what I want. This is, that relationship to self. In terms of the role that I play as a facilitator, what I find is that it's through if I'm in person with someone, it's through eye contact and co-regulation and often my touch that we are literally generating a regenerative field that is very intimate. It's not sexual, right? We usually conflate the term intimacy with sexuality, but
Right.
it's more primary. It's this essential intimacy that actually as little babies, we shared with our moms through eye contact and skin contact and breastfeeding. And that's where the original Eros was set up. And so a lot of people that I see that have addictive behaviors or have unintegrated trauma, they're actually seeking to recreate a corrective environment so they can actually do the work of regrowing those neural networks and those pathways biologically, physiologically in their bodies. So there's a lot I could say about this. It's hard to really describe because it's so experiential.
I
But
love the idea of it though.
yeah, I mean, you've probably experienced, in moments in your life, let's say even just with your partner, with somebody you have deep safety and trust with, where you can, linger in some eye contact or breathing together or, some kind of intimacy or with a friend,
Yeah.
where you actually start to feel like you drop into this, almost like this transformational space where there's like new potentials that start to arise. We leave that more polarized black and white world of it's this or it's that.
Yeah.
And there's like another element that starts to emerge.
I love that. I mean, certainly, it's a journey, right? Because I think when we have those deep wounds where we don't feel safe being connected or being vulnerable, where connection might happen, and we have those walls up. I know for me, I had that, and it was really hard to be intimate, both sexual and just with friends, like to have that
Mhm.
eye contact that lasted a little bit longer, or hold a girlfriend's hand, just for sweetness, 'cause I was a little uncomfortable with that. Like, I'm like, don't get too close. Like, or if
Mhm.
somebody did kind of enter my field, I literally, Ajaya, I do something to kick them back.
Mm.
When somebody entered my field, it was never voluntary, like it was never a conscious thing, but you know, as I was observing myself and trying to heal, I would see places where I would like have unconsciously but deliberately or unconsciously deliberately, sort of establish that boundary again that I didn't want anybody to be inside of. And so whether I made a sarcastic kind of mean remark or just did some, like, after sweetness, then to have something kind of acerbic where everybody's like, it kind of hurts to know me, like it's sort of like, oh, that was sweet, but what just happened there,
Mm.
but I would observe myself doing that, and I saw it's because I couldn't handle a lot of intimacy. Like I just couldn't handle that because I had that protection, and it has been fun to see, excuse me, to see that changing over time where I can handle so much more without sabotage. I guess sabotage is probably the best word for it. And probably people listening, they might relate to that, where somehow you sabotage intimacy. You have a partner trying to be sweet to you and you can only handle so much, but that has certainly changed over time where it's just, I mean, thank God, right? Because that's no way to
Mhm.
live, like come close and then I'll hurt you, you know? So anyway, I'm great.
Right.
I don't know if I just went off on a big tangent there, but I'm grateful. I see the progress in myself with that. I
Mm.
see that I can handle so much more happiness and good and closeness and sweetness, even with people who aren't, partners, let's say, just more physical touch and just sweetness without feeling like, oh no, this is dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different bodies of work and ways of languaging it, but I think essentially you're describing the process of we all have defenders or protectors
Yeah.
that are here to protect our most vulnerable places where we exiled ourselves, where we left ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that process of growing more safety to come home, to actually have more of you is what allows you to then have more circuitry or charge in your system, capacity to have more charge for more pleasure, more intimacy, more joy. Those are, that requires a more alive system, right?
Yes.
So that's, I mean, I think there's so many different ways we can talk about it, but essentially that is the process.
Yeah.
Growing more capacity to be more alive.
I love that. That's beautiful. Will you talk a little bit more about the work that you do? Is it one-on-one work? Is it group work? Is it with practitioners, individuals?
Yeah.
What are you doing to help people heal?
Thank you. Well, what you were just describing in your own journey, I could say that, so I have a core program. I have a core embodiment foundation program where I actually teach people a practice. And it's a somatic practice that works with breath and actual sounds we generate that are internal vibrations that pattern interrupt where those stories actually live in our core. That's why it's called core embodiment. What I found is that when we're young and actually throughout our lives, when we have experiences where we go into shock or we're overwhelmed, essentially that's a trauma response, right? Where there's too much for me to stay for and be resourced in. And so I split, I leave, I fragment. Well, all of that leaves a trail in our nervous systems and in our tissues. And so the practice literally takes people through a very beautiful, intimate journey of kind of unwinding that trail and realigning with themselves on a core level. And we go through a journey of reclaiming our developmental needs and all kinds of other fun things. So that's one piece of work that I do that's actually over Zoom.
Okay.
And then, similarly, when I'm working with somebody over Zoom privately, that's a group process. Privately or in person, I would say I'm still tracking the same terrain, but I might be working more one-on-one in terms of their unique, idiosyncrasies and exactly how they left and what stories they made up and, their unique pathways home. And then when I'm in person with people, I sometimes do deeper immersions where we're together for some hours or days. And I think of those immersive experiences really almost like I'm like a mother surrogate. We do the deep work of really rewiring, especially people who had early trauma, especially relationship to their mom or their early caregivers. And they just struggle in life with, like you were saying, their capacity to be intimate with others, or they struggle with their identity. They're confused about their own authentic being and responses. So literally, it's like we create a corrective environment where we rewire those pathways. And, it's so unique. It just depends on what someone brings.
Right. Obviously, your intuition and brilliance is right there guiding them and guiding the process. So that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for sharing your work and your beautiful heart with us today. I really enjoy seeing you and hearing you and experiencing what you're doing in the world to help people heal. It's such important work. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here and asking me these juicy questions.
Yeah.
I hope that what we've been sharing serves your listeners in some way. And thank you for your incredible work.
Thank
that you are up to.
Yeah, no question. I think it will serve people. I like to ask people a final question before I ask where people can find you. But the final question is, this being the Heal Your Hunger show, what is your deepest hunger, Ajaya?
Wow. Let me just have a moment to feel that. I feel like my deepest hunger is to really fully live and embody like who I came here to be and what I came here to do. And, I feel like I am, and there's more. And I don't always know what that more is, but I feel like that's always what I'm hungry for. I'm always sniffing out, what can I learn next that's gonna, grow me in a way that I can actually serve in a greater way, or what's my own healing work that I need to do to let go of something that's in my way. Or, I think this feeling that when I die, I actually lived what I came here to live, that I'm well used.
I love that. It's so beautiful. I love that. And I, I hunger for everybody to have that hunger. Right. I tell people all the time, it's not about the food. And, people kind of know that intellectually, but then it begs the question, what's it really about then? And I've spent a lifetime trying to get away from what it's really about, right? Like the feelings and the experiences that need healing. But that is that path is such a beautiful path, because it will lead to a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And you're absolutely aligned with what you're here to do. So there's some really big benefits, right, of that inner work and that journey. So I love that you are embodying that in the way that you are. And I know there's more to come. So yay, yay for your commitment to that, and then committing to helping other people with that. Will you share how people can get a hold of you, and also the free gift that you have for folks?
Sure. Well, my main website is my name, ajayasommers.com, AJAYASOMMERS.com. And you can find me on Instagram, same name, and also Facebook, same name. Those are my main sort of handles. And the free gift, what I didn't talk about today is that I would say all of my work, and actually I did a pilot study a while back on core embodiment, on the practice. We did just a series of EEGs, and it tested very high in what's called flow state. And flow state is essentially where we are in our most creative kind of genius zone. Often writers experience flow state, or, mountain climbers or surfers, sometimes it's called being in the zone. And essentially the practice that I created puts people in that space. And so it's almost like the accumulation at the point where you've done all this trauma healing, you get to a point where you actually have access to flow, to what you were just saying, to your, to being on purpose, to being in alignment, to bringing through what's yours to bring through. And so I created this checklist. It's, I think it's called flow state or flow-based leadership checklist. And there are 11 hacks that might surprise you in terms of what supports you to stay in flow just on a daily basis. Things like you were speaking to, being clear about your boundaries. I forget what they all are, but they're kind of juicy and interesting and might surprise you. I would say it's my unique kind of spin on flow state, because a lot of flow state lingo, it belongs to high performance professionals and sort of the more masculine roles. So I would say it's kind of more my feminine take on flow state and how to practice it.
I just signed up for it, so I'm excited.
Okay, cool.
So we'll put that link in the show notes. Thanks so much for being here, Ajaya. It's so good to hear you, so good to see you. And again, thanks for the beautiful work that you do in the world. And I can't wait to see you in person sometime soon. I know that's coming up. So blessings to you, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Please stay with us for the next episode.
Thank you, Tricia. Such an honor to get to be with you.
Yeah, take care.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.